I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, it's 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting them...
Yeah, buddy, we made it to the start of the NFL season. 24 hours from now, the Kansas City Chiefs will be playing the Detroit Lions in Arrowhead, and the 2023-24 season will be kicked off. And that means everybody's got to start getting their fantasy lineups in. Trevor, how pumped are you for this day? It feels like Christmas is tomorrow. I don't know how I'm going to sleep.
Yeah, celebrating a Red Wednesday all day long. Man, it's awesome that the NFL season is kicking off. It's even more awesome that it's the Chiefs, hanging the banner in Arrowhead, hosting that first game again, first time in just a couple of years, actually, for anybody who forgot that they've now won it 2 times in the last 4. So, yeah, just awesome time. I was talking to my wife before the show. I'm like, man, I'm so pumped for tonight. She was like, why? Like, what's different? You do this every Wednesday. It's like, no, this one's different because now we're here to talk about just this week. It's no more projections on yearly long quarterback rankings, any of that. It's, all right, what are we going to do this week? Where are we going to go? Right. Who's going to be the play? So super pumped about that, man.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight. Obviously, you're tuning in with another Dan Fantasy podcast brought to you by Bite Size Sports. I'm Dan, and Trevor is here. Tonight, we'll obviously get into the season. So there's a lot of news and injuries that we want to cover for you guys. Make sure everybody's squared away before we get into the weekend, including some injuries for tomorrow night's game. We'll go into starts and sits, kind of walk through that thing. Some daily fantasy. We'll talk about some streams at some different positions. And, of course, we'll get to some fan questions, which was a lot of cool seeing all the responses there. Any of you guys who are tuning in for the stream tonight, don't be afraid to drop those questions in because we're going to make sure that we're answering those for you as we continue to move through it. And this will kind of be a format for us the rest of the season. So get used to coming here, getting your start and sit information, getting those hidden gems and nuggets that Trevor and I are going to pull out for you guys. And if anything, you can always reach out to us on social media or join our Discord where we're going to be answering fan questions all year long. I know we're going to be popping those links just about everywhere in the chats and on social media. So tag along with us and just kind of experience 2023-24 fantasy football with Trevor and I.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Last year was like our rookie year together, right? Yeah. It was kind of our first year running the show, had a great time, but now we're professionals now. No, but we're definitely a little bit more veterans, and we're ready to go, and we're ready to provide it in more spaces than just right here on YouTube, or if you listen to the audio on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We appreciate it no matter how you get our content, but definitely on Twitter. Come join the Discord. We had a couple questions in the Discord today. I was able to answer them immediately. And we can still bring those questions to the table tonight. But on Discord, I can just instantly respond to you. So make sure you are joining the Discord and definitely joining the ADP channel once you get to the Discord. I will drop it in the chat here momentarily.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to dive into some of these injuries. I know there's a lot that we've kind of covered leading up to this point. We do have some important updates as we kind of move through this. And, really it's starting with the Denver Broncos is where we're going to start it anyway. Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver. We know he tweaked that hamstring earlier in the offseason. There were reports that we weren't sure what was going to happen to him, how many games he was going to end up missing as we kind of headed towards the start of the season. And unfortunately, he is in a questionable status right now, but the fortunate side is we really thought he was going to miss a few more games.
Yeah, he misses the IR, which was really good right at the very beginning of the season. We were kind of worried about that. I'll blow this up a little bit bigger. This is Chris Thomason. He is a writer for the Denver Gazette, and I mean, obviously this is yesterday. He doesn't practice, remains in question. with a hamstring injury. For me, it kind of feels like Jerry Jeudy's probably not going to be on the field this week. But as you mentioned, like, I think we're going to avoid him being out for 4 to 6 weeks. I think it's truly going to be, maybe week 2 or week 3 before we see him. But this gives us a glimmer of hope, I think, just to know that he's not on that IR. He didn't hit that PUP list, anything like that at the beginning of the season.
Absolutely. And I think what this means for folks that are holding on to Cortland Sutton or Marvin Mims or even Greg Dulcich really is you might see a nice little uptick in targets as they face the Las Vegas Raiders, kind of a shaky team for them to go up against week 1, a defense that has its fair share of holes. So I think, that could be a good way for you to work those guys in the lineup early. But once Jerry Jeudy comes back, definitely temper expectations for those other guys, because Jeudy was the number 1 guy last year, even with those other guys on the field, excluding Mims, of course.
The last thing I'll say on Jerry Jeudy from my standpoint is we'll talk about hamstrings a little bit more here with the next one as well, but hamstrings definitely worry me a little bit, especially with wide receivers. It just seems like they always are there. So go check out, see if Marvin Mims might be on your waivers. If so, great addition just to throw at your end of your bench. Not somebody you're necessarily looking to start this week, but throw them at the end of your bench, see what happens. And if you can get a good week or 2 out of Jerry Jeudy, I'm going to be looking to sell high mid-season. Let's just keep on the hamstring train.
Hey, unfortunately, we do have to stay on it. And really, this goes to a guy that most of you, if you drafted him, he's probably a top 5, top 6 pick in your fantasy drafts. Cooper Kupp, Los Angeles Rams tweaked that hammy as well. They kind of downplayed it when it first initially happened. And then we got some surprise news about a week and a half ago. He was going to see a specialist in Minnesota, and now he's ruled out week 1. So you can officially place him on the bench to start your season. But at the same time, Sean McVay didn't necessarily rule out a stint on the IR either, which definitely gives me some concern.
Yeah, injures it earlier in the offseason, comes back, and then re-aggravates it. Exactly what I'm talking about with like a Jerry Jeudy. These hamstring with wide receivers, it just never seems to go away. A stint on the IR for Cooper Kupp, to me, if I have him, I'm not totally upset. Maybe he gets back and he's actually healthy for the second half of the season, but I don't know. For me, best case scenario, that's what he's at the end of the season. He's playing, he's healthy, he helps you in a playoff run. Worst case scenario, we don't see Cooper Kupp again. I mean, I think he'll try it, but I don't know if we'll ever see the Cooper Kupp again, just because of his age and these hamstrings. They really do linger. Where's your panic meter on Cooper Kupp right now?
I'll tell you my panic meter as somebody who took him in one of my drafts this year. We had a super early draft in this league prior to all of the hamstring mess that came out. Luckily for me, I take a heavy wide receiver approach, and I'm still panicked. With everything you've mentioned about the hamstring and the way that those linger on for players throughout a season, I mean, there's 100% truth to that. And with Cooper Kupp having previous injuries, he's on the other side of 30 now. There's all of those different pieces that tend to play a factor in how well he's going to recover from this. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Adam Thielen is one of the first receivers that comes to mind that suffered an injury. And then when he came back, he just never was the same. He kind of seemed like he lost a step a little bit. Now Cooper Kupp is definitely a route technician, and maybe there's a chance he comes back and has more of a Julian Edelman approach where he tore his ACL. Cause I feel like those guys played similar slot positions and had those similar injuries. But yeah, I mean, there's just really no telling. And for me personally, I'm having to rely on shifting my guys up. So it's more Christian Kirk, going to be more DJ Moore than I was really anticipating. Luckily, I had a good good turn with that, but that wasn't the case for every draft. And, that's really a big reason why we tell everybody is sort of, if you play in multiple leagues, diversify your portfolio a little bit. Don't rely on all of those same players so you don't have cascade reactions. And that was a lot of what my strategy was coming into this season. And yeah, I mean, as far as panic goes, if I'm putting on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm feeling like a 7.5.
Yeah, I've got Cooper Kupp in probably my best dynasty team. First place 2 years ago, fourth place last year. Had a chance and just missed the championship game without Cooper Kupp last year. And I'm at the point where I almost want to just see what I can get out of him.
Yeah.
And let somebody else hold the bag in a dynasty league. But yeah, definitely panicked on Cooper Kupp for this season only. I'm up to a 7 out of 10, somewhere in that range. Just not really. It doesn't seem like a good situation for Cooper Kupp. And unfortunately, you can't really do much about it right now except put him on your IR spot. Hopefully your league uses it and just kind of monitor it as you go.
Yep. And look at some of those other Rams receivers to pick up. I know Skoranic's going to be a guy who really stepped up in Kupp's absence last year. That might be worth targeting. And then Van Jefferson, who was hurt for most of last season, definitely I think his stock goes up with this injury. Moving it over to the Miami Dolphins running back situation, Devon A-Chain, we saw the shoulder injury. He's back at practice, luckily. I think he has a questionable tag on his name for this week. And then Jeff Wilson, a surprise IR slotting. I don't know about you. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention close enough to the Miami running back situation, but I had no idea that there was any chance Jeff Wilson was going to end up on IR.
I wasn't really expecting an IR stint here for Jeff Wilson. I didn't mind it. It felt very warm in a sense of like, okay, now I know who to play, right? Like,
yeah,
because you put Jeff Wilson in the mix, you don't know who to play week to week. It did feel good. I'll definitely be talking about Raheem Mostert today. But this Devon A-Chain, man, he has been injured all offseason or preseason. But then he comes right back to practice the next day. And then he gets injured and then he comes back to practice. I'm like, it reminds me of the sniff snap from The Office. And I'm just like, I don't know. Is this guy going to be injured all the time or never injured? Man, it's weird. I know that he's very small in stature, so I wonder if that has something to do with it. Mm-hmm. But I can't wait to see a healthy Devon A-Chain on the field this week and see that speed. And I think once Jeff Wilson's back, it'll kind of murky the waters just a little bit. We'll see how the first 4 to 6 weeks go for the Miami Dolphins. For now, it's Mostert, it's A-Chain, and I think that we're going to be happy with either one of them over the next couple of weeks.
No, I'm totally with you there. A-Chain was really a guy that you and I were both high on coming into this season, and Mostert, I think, had the best season out of the 3 last year. So you know that he can put up those numbers, and if you end up stashing him in the later rounds or A-Chain in the later rounds, I think you've got a solid player on your hands for the long haul during the season, because we know with Mike McDaniel and Shanahan offenses, those running backs just churn out points left and right. Seems like you and I could put up 15 a week if they put us in the backfield. So they just draw things up in a different way. Keeping it in the same vein with running backs, Breece Hall obviously coming back from the knee. Ian Rappaport put up a tweet here saying that he will be playing week 1. So I think the question everyone wants to know is, who are you going to start? Are you going to put Breece Hall in the lineup, or are you going to lean towards Dalvin Cook with this one?
If I had Breece Hall, I feel like I have to start him. You drafted him to be a starting running back on your team. I will have low expectations for him. As you see here, the team will be smart with Hall and his return. I do believe that. I think that's one of the reasons why they went out and got a guy like Dalvin Cook, so they could be smart with Breece Hall in his return. But yeah, unless I just went really heavy running back or just found some studs, maybe I have Raheem Mostert. I'm not saying to start Mostert over Hall, but if I feel good about it, maybe I just go that route knowing that Raheem Mostert's going to get all the run in Miami and Breece Hall's going to get like 30% of the run in New York this week. So, and they're playing the Bills, right? It's the Bills Jets on Monday Night Football, right? I got that.
Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
that's right. So
that's correct.
Not like it's an easy, defense to run up against here,
Right.
but it would be really hard to not play Breece Hall this week. But it's going to feel gross, and I'm just like, lower your expectations. Don't expect to go out and get a barn burner type of game from Breece Hall. You put him in your lineup, you close your eyes, you close your nose, and hopefully you wake up on Tuesday morning, he's giving you 12 points and doesn't lose the week for you.
Absolutely. Now, there is some tight end uncertainty kind of going into week 1, and with a position that's already so thin. I know there were some questions that were asked by listeners here. But, Mark Andrews, he's got his own little quad injury that he's kind of dealing with. We know George Kittle's got the groin. He missed a practice on Monday. What do you make of the tight end situation kind of going into week 1 without mentioning the elephant in the room, of course?
It's weird because you go to like a rankings or something on like an ESPN and like 5 of the top 6 have a Q beside their name. It's going to be gross. It's going to be a gross week in with tight ends. And I think, let's be honest, tight ends have been gross forever. They're gross all of last year. And if nothing else, if a couple of these guys don't play, I kind of just think it evens the playing field in a sense of like it takes away any positional advantage you may have had. And it might leave now 1 or 2 teams in your league with the positional advantage at tight end. And so the rest of you are just even playing field. That's kind of the way I see it. Maybe you play against, Mark Andrews. Well, now you might be, kind of the guy behind this week. But if you can avoid a Mark Andrews or it looks like Hawkinson's going to play. So if you can avoid a Hawkinson, maybe you feel a lot better because now maybe you're facing Goddard or Pitts or somebody. You don't feel that bad about it. But yeah, that's kind of the way I see it. It's like it just really muddies the water for tight ends, and it just kind of evens the playing field a little bit more.
Absolutely. Finally, we'll touch on probably the best offensive player outside of Patrick Mahomes playing in the Thursday night football game, and it's Travis Kelce. He had a knee issue flare up this week, and they termed it a bone bruise. We saw every doctor under the sun coming out with their own report on what it could be, from bone bruise all the way up to, potential ACL tears with that hyperextended knee. Fortunately for us, Adam Schefter came out, says bone bruise to the knee. He was limited the day he got hurt. And then, we're not sure exactly what's going to happen for him for Thursday night's game. They slapped a questionable tag on him, as per Schefter. And, really, I think with Andy Reid's track record and how he tends to handle injuries, especially with marquee players, we're probably going to take a safe route. I'd say best case scenario, he's on a pitch count and plays like 20% of the snaps. What's most likely gonna happen is he's gonna be out on the sideline in a hoodie and some shorts. You know what I mean? Like, just not gonna get any field time. And the Chiefs have plans for a very long season. We've played until the AFC Championship every year for the last 5 years of Travis Kelce's career. So they're going to want to do everything they can to maintain him in that instance. And as a Chiefs fan, I totally understand it. As a fantasy football player, I would be a little bit perturbed about this situation because you probably took Kelce in the first round. Which makes this a really tough scenario for you as you kind of navigate the waters of week 1. But I don't know how much more I can say. Hopefully you just have a good insurance policy on your bench for a player you spent so much capital on.
Yeah, I definitely have was it Keenan Allen vibes? Like Keenan Allen, it said like play me or something. I'm playing. And he wasn't out of the game, but then he never touched the field. it was like 2 or 3 years ago. That's the kind of vibes I'm getting right now is like Travis Kelce might start or he might be suited up. And so he doesn't have the out, and so now you feel like you got to start him and then he doesn't play at all. So yeah, I think, honestly, I got to trust the Chiefs. I got to trust this team. And if Kelce is playing in the game without reports of like, hey, he's playing, but he's going to be limited, like he's not going to play any snaps, even if he's limited, but he's not going to play any snaps, then I got to play him. I'm going to put him in my lineup. The nice thing is if he is out, it's a Thursday night game, throw him in your IR spot, pick up another tight end for later on in the week. Does give you a little bit of that flexibility. They're not playing like a Monday night game to where now you're really screwed there. But that's kind of the way I would handle him right now is check the news tomorrow, see if there's any type of news coming out from him being not playing at all. But if he's limited, I'm not that worried about it. I'll probably still play him because, quite frankly, limited could be he comes in the red zone and scores a touchdown or two. Right. He just doesn't run a long route, right? So he just comes in and catch a couple touchdowns. That could absolutely happen for Kelce this week. And I think that really just takes us right into our start-sit questions. And if you are here in the chat, please throw in your start-sit questions. I know some of you have already done that thus far. We'll definitely get to a couple of those here. But throw them in there. Let us know what your start-sit questions are. And really just the first one off the top comes right from this tight end situation from @RyanMiner_FFB on Twitter with somebody tight end questionable. What tight ends are you switching to? So I guess he's kind of looking at what tight ends might be available that we should be looking at if George Kittle doesn't play, if Travis Kelce doesn't play, if Mark Andrews has a slip up this week, those kind of things. I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm happy to. So, I mean, I got to go back to Old Faithful if I'm looking at anybody in particular, and I think you know where I'm going to go with it. It's my man, Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett and the LA Chargers. They're playing the Miami Dolphins. I know we're going to talk a lot of Chargers and Dolphins this week on the show with our players that we picked. There's going to be some big points getting put up in that game, big points. And I see a lot of potential for Gerald Everett to sort of ball out. Obviously, I'm not going to be naming any other tight ends that are like for sure getting drafted in your leagues. I'm going to talk more about guys that maybe got drafted as a tight end too, or some waiver options. Sam Laporta with the Detroit Lions is a guy that I'm looking at. I know I'll probably be talking about him a little bit later. And then, outside of that, I mean, if you're just looking for a guy that you could plug in for this week, that's most likely available on your waivers, look at those rookie tight ends for the Cowboys and the Packers. Maybe you can snag one of those guys for those games too.
I like the Ferguson call for sure. I think he's clear-cut number one tight end there. We just don't know how much they're gonna use him yet, but I do like that Ferguson call if you need to go real deep in it. I have Tyler Higbee written down as well. Just a guy who probably wasn't drafted in every single league. Didn't really check his percentage rostered on ESPN or anything, but check and see if he's out there available. And then I also put down Sam Laporta in this game tomorrow night. Look, 52.5 points, man. There's going to be plenty of points scored. I won't be surprised if the Lions put up 31 points tomorrow night. No Chris Jones in the middle. A younger defense still. Like the Chiefs defense is not anything to write home about right now. So I'm not saying that they're going to beat them. I think Mahomes could – the Lions defense is way worse than the Chiefs defense. So I'm not worried about the Chiefs outscoring them. But the point is there's going to be a shit ton of points scored tomorrow night, in my opinion. So if you can get one of the healthy guys on that team in Sam Laporta to play instead of Travis Kelce, like, hey, you know right now what you need the rest of the week. So I don't mind that going that route at all.
And I think it's important to note too, in regards to Sam Laporta, that L'Jarius Sneed is also questionable for the game tomorrow night, who is arguably the second best player on the defense. He's easily top 3 with Nick Bolton kind of mixing in there as well. So, he plays a lot of nickel sets. He does cover a lot of tight ends in those scenarios too. And so those are all things that are going to be impactful for, what Laporta is going to be able to do. So yeah, 100% agree with you there on Higbee as well. I think Higbee is going to be a big recipient of that Cooper Kupp injury. And that was something I didn't really touch on earlier, but that's a great point.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get one from the chat here before we keep on the show sheet. New Brockney, welcome back, my friend. Says Burrow or Fields this week, and then pick 2 for flex: Deion Jackson, DeAndre Swift, and Sky Moore. I'll go. I mean, it's Fields for me this week. Burrow with that calf injury still definitely has me a little bit worried this week. I think it lowers his rushing floor quite a bit. Plus, you don't want to see that kind of flare up any this weekend. So for me, I'm gonna go Fields at home with that one, and then I'm going Swift and Sky Moore. If I can avoid this Colts backfield for right now, that's that. It's more about that than anything to me. And I know you'll talk about Sky Moore later on, but it's Swift and Sky Moore for me. What do you think?
I think I'll just be contrarian on the quarterback here. I'm going to go with Burrow in my scenario. Divisional game against the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, he has that lingering ankle injury, but he was present at practice this week, full participant today even. He's throwing to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I don't know that there's anything else that you would
Those
need
guys are
in
good.
that scenario. They're fine, they're not bad. So I feel really good about putting Burrow in your lineup. Obviously, Fields has the major rushing upside here, and I'm interested to see what he's going to do with those weapons, but I would just go for week 1, a tried and true option at quarterback with Burrow. And then as far as the flex go, I'm on the same page as you, because tell you the truth, in Indy, I think it's going to be more Evan Hull than Deion Jackson when it's all said and done. And we still don't know the status of Zach Moss, who I think would trump both of those guys in a running scenario.
Yep. I'd agree with that.
So I'm not sure about Jackson. I'd just leave him off. DeAndre Swift, I'm a big fan of him this year. And then, I'll definitely talk about Sky Moore later. But but definitely if Kelce's going to be out, that just ups his potential. So
absolutely. Yeah, I like that a lot. In standard scoring, so I assume this is non-PPR. That's what I take standard scoring as, although PPR should be the standard scoring, let's be honest. In standard scoring, Waddle, Mostert, or Dotson. You get to start 2 of them. That comes from @Pope_corn on Twitter. I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going Jalen Waddle. I don't think there's any scenario where I don't plug him in out of these guys. You just
drafted him in the 2nd round or 3rd round.
Yeah, there's no way. And if you didn't, you probably got him in like the 4th or 5th, and you got lucky, in my opinion, to get him there. After that, it's really tough to decide between Raheem Mostert and Jahan Dotson for me. Obviously, with Mostert getting the majority of the touches there in Miami, you'll have to excuse my dogs if you can hear them.
Getting ready for tomorrow, man.
I know they're all hyped up. But Jahan Dotson, depending on the status of Terry McLaurin, I do really like him as well going against that weak Cardinals defense.
Yeah, if this is truly a non-PPR, I'm gonna go Mostert just strictly off of touchdown chance and the amount of touches I think he could potentially get against that Chargers defense. If it was PPR, I would flip him. Like, that's truly where I'm sitting at between Mostert versus Dotson. If it's non-PPR, go Mostert. If it's PPR, I'm going Dotson all day. All right, we have 2 questions that are kind of similar here around Bateman and Mooney. The first one is, what are your thoughts on Bateman and Mooney in week 1 and beyond? That comes from @DBD Fantasy FB, Death by Dynasty Pod. So what are your thoughts on Bateman versus Mooney this week and beyond, I guess?
So for Bateman, obviously, he's coming off that season-long injury. You'll see my thoughts on the Ravens wide receivers a little bit later, so I won't dive too deep into that for week 1. But long term, I think there's potential there
for him to become that receiver that everyone thought he was going to be in his first couple seasons. Zay Flowers, I think, threatens that a little bit. He's gotten a lot of hype in training camp and preseason. But, if you got him super late and you're stashing him and he ends up being, this hidden gem, I think you're in a good place. And Darnell Mooney, I'm really high on him. He was a 1,000-yard receiver last year with Justin Fields, who really didn't come into his own until the back half of the season. And he's just a big play machine. So I definitely see DJ Moore getting the bulk of the targets and everything in that Chicago offense as they pass the ball. But Darnell Mooney is going to be that guy that pops off for big plays and is going to be that perfect bye week fill-in guy. I don't think he's going to be a regular starter unless you're in like a 2-flex league and it's really deep. But for Darnell Mooney, I mean, relying on him for the bye weeks as Chicago navigates an easy NFC schedule, I mean, he's going to be due for some big games.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think my hardest part about Mooney is going to be, I think he's going to be a little hit or miss, right? He's going to be very like Tyler Lockett-esque, where he might have 3 or 4 good games and he might disappear for 4 to 5 weeks. So but sometimes you gotta throw some upside in there a little bit. What I'm going to go is I'm going to go with Mooney over Bateman for week 1. I just don't think that Bateman coming off that injury this preseason, I don't expect a whole lot out of him this week. So I'd rather just go Mooney over Bateman just for this week. But season long, I definitely like Bateman more. I think he could potentially be more consistent than Darnell Mooney. But I would look elsewhere. So the answer to the next question for me is pretty easy. So the next question is just throw Treylon Burks in the middle of this, right? So who would you start, Burks, Mooney, or Bateman? And again, this week, I would rather look elsewhere than Mooney or Bateman, so I'm going Treylon Burks. Dan, are you going the same place with Burks versus Mooney and Bateman, or are you going to take one of the other two guys?
Man, I got to tell you, it's hard for me to be in a position to start any of these guys. I think that would be something that would be really difficult for me to sort of navigate. I'm with you on Bateman, going to leave him on the bench for sure. I do like Burks slightly over Mooney, just because I think there's a potential for him to get maybe more of that target share than what Mooney's going to get in Chicago. But this one's really tough for me between those two guys.
That last question, by the way, did come straight from our Discord. So again, join the Discord if you haven't already. The link is above. Let's get to some of these listener questions in the chat tonight. What's the reason? This is not a start-sit question, but a little bit of DFS. Not that I would be playing the Broncos anyways. What's the reasoning behind Sean Payton being so hard on Russell Wilson? Scary for me to touch any Broncos on DFS. I don't trust the Broncos anyways right now. I just want to see it happen. Like, I would not be playing these guys in DFS this week unless you're playing in a massive, massive tournament and you just want to get really, really weird. But the Sean Payton thing, I mean, Russ was bad last year. He can blame Nathaniel Hackett all he wants, but he was bad last year. So he can't be bad again, or Sean Payton will just move on from him, I think.
Yeah, he was bad and corny. So
yeah.
I think Sean Payton's just tired of it. And
I want to see you play some ball, man.
Yeah, he's like, stop doing these videos and let's ride and let's ball instead.
That's right. Tyler says, Tua or Watson? I have Tyreek Hill and Amari Cooper starting. So you got Tyreek, you got Cooper. Which one of the two are you stacking up the quarterback with this week?
That's a conundrum, man.
Yeah.
I know the Browns, they're playing the Bengals. I like the Dolphins and Chargers game a little bit better, in my opinion. I think I would go with Tua here. I just feel like there's going to be a lot of points put up, and in that game, a lot of opportunities for Tua to connect with Tyreek Hill there. I do know J.C. Jackson is healthy for that Chargers defense, and that could be something where he's probably lining up across from Tyreek Hill a little bit more. But, I mean, those two are going to connect at the end of the day. There's not going to be anything stopping Tyreek Hill from catching his 6 to 7 passes in that game. And then with Deshaun Watson, there was a little bit of a, readjustment period for him last year. Obviously with Tua, everyone's worried about the concussion thing, but I'm rolling with Tua here. If I'm him, just rolling with that stack in Miami, I think it maybe can bear a little more fruit.
Yeah. Bears, Bengals. Nope. Browns, Bengals. You got the divisional, rivalry going on. 47.5 total. Where's the other one? Miami, Los Angeles, and the nice warm LA weather. 50.5 total. I could see the overhitting in this game. The offenses are great. The defenses, can be had a little bit here and there. So I'm not expecting a Baltimore Miami week 2 from last year, but I do think there's going to be a little bit more scoring in this game. Whereas I think the Browns Bengals, Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb could touch the ball 30 times a piece.
Yeah.
And just not, it could end up 14-10.
Milk
And
that
Deshaun Watson has nothing. So I'm going to go Tua as well this week in this matchup or this scenario. Cam Akers or David Montgomery? Cam Akers in that same LA game. No, LA Rams versus the Seattle Seahawks are in Seattle. And then Montgomery tomorrow night against the Chiefs. What are you thinking here?
Man, that's tough. It's really similar to another question that we got from Taylor C on Instagram, where he asked, I have both of the Lions running backs. Should I start both in a 2-flex league? So really, I think this might be a good opportunity to answer both of those questions. Cam Akers or Montgomery? I was not big on Cam Akers coming into the season, to tell you the truth, but with Cooper Kupp being out, I think maybe they rely on the running game a little bit more. Maybe they rely on some dump offs, get him involved that way a little bit more. I know Montgomery has a favorable matchup with the Kansas City's defense, but he is splitting touches a little bit more than what Cam Akers is going to be doing in LA. So I'm riding with Cam Akers on that one. As far as the 2-flex league question, that is super interesting. He did give me some context where the other options there were AJ Dillon, Antonio Gibson, and Jalen Warren. So in a 2-flex league, are you starting both of those Lions running backs over those other 3 guys?
Man, I don't think so. I think I'm rather going. If it's PPR, I think I'm probably going to ride with Gibson against the Cardinals in this Washington team.
Yep.
If it isn't, then I think it's kind of a toss-up between AJ Dillon and David Montgomery. For me, it's Jahmyr Gibbs for sure. Definitely putting him in the flex this week.
He's the firm.
I have no questions about him. For Tyler's question, I am Akers over Montgomery. I am going to talk about Akers here in a little bit, so stick around for my thoughts on Cam Akers. But yeah, I think that I would definitely rather look elsewhere. And now knowing the other guys that he has, I'm probably leaning a Gibson or an AJ Dillon. Not because I think that in a vacuum they're a better play than David Montgomery. But if you're playing David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, I do feel like you are kind of lowering your ceiling for a week. They could both come out and get 12 points. Great. But you kind of want one of them to go off, right? You want one of them to score the touchdown and get the 6 catches. And for me, that's Jahmyr Gibbs. It's not going to be David Montgomery. I don't think you're going to get 6 catches and a touchdown from Gibbs and then 3 touchdowns from Montgomery to where they're both hitting their ceiling. That's just not necessarily high probability. So that's why I lean away from playing both of them in the flex and probably going towards an AJ Dillon or a Antonio Gibson, just trying to raise my ceiling a little bit there with that one.
No, absolutely. I think I gave him the answer too, and I was in the same boat as you. I like Antonio Gibson a little bit better, especially since it is a PPR formatted league. Everything that I've heard about Gibson is that he's going to be heavily involved in that passing game. It's likely that we'll see him and Brian Robinson on the field at the exact same time in a lot of those sets where he's going to be one of those primary passing options. So PPR, I think he'd be a great play against the Cardinals. And It doesn't matter if they're in a sweat fest where they're, scoring back and forth, or whether it's a total blowout and Washington's just killing clock. Gibson's going to get touches.
Yeah, I agree with that. I didn't see this one. Tyler added Khalil Herbert in there. I'm going Herbert over both of them. Herbert's going to be the number one in Chicago. I'm not worried about Foreman. I'm not worried about Roschon Johnson, at least early in the year about Johnson. I do think he'll gain some traction towards the middle of the season. But for week one, I'm Khalil Herbert, and I would take him over both of these guys. What do you think if you add Khalil Herbert in there?
No, I think that's a great point. Or I guess an interesting add to the mix here with Khalil Herbert going against the Packers. I don't know if you remember, the Packers were like a bottom 5 rush defense in the league last year. If you started a running back against the Packers, you were sure to get like at least 80 yards on the ground on average, not to mention a touchdown or two. I like Khalil Herbert a lot against that team. And, me saying that out loud almost makes you want to change my quarterback pick from the question earlier, but I just wanted to be on the other side of the aisle from you, because I think Justin Fields could potentially blow that up too. So
we can't agree with everything.
I know, right? We gotta be on some different sides here and there, but no, I do like Khalil Herbert better over them just because of that matchup and the way that Chicago runs their offense. It is run first. So
if you're in the chat with us and you have any start-sit questions or any questions about your current roster, throw them in the chat. We will be sure to answer them. We have 2 more start-sit questions, at least on the show sheet. You might have your own, Dan. These are pretty straightforward ones for, they're PPR, wide receiver versus wide receiver, starting with DeAndre Hopkins versus Chris Godwin. Which one are you playing?
Between those two guys, I'm definitely going D-Hop over Godwin. I'm not sure the scenario, if it's like a flex play or if this is like wide receiver 2 or what the scenario is there. But if it's strictly who are you going with week 1, I'm going D-Hop. Baker Mayfield worries me. I don't know what the heck's going to happen there. I just refer back to his time in Cleveland where he had Odell Beckham Jr. as his wide receiver in the prime of his career, and we never saw big games. I mean, we just didn't really see it that often. Maybe once a season you'd get a vintage OBJ game. So with Godwin there in Tampa with Baker, and Mike Evans is on the field too, I just really want to see how the Tampa passing game is going to shake out week 1. Not that Minnesota's defense is all that great against the pass. I don't think they have a ton of solid secondary pieces there that are really going to hamper that, but it's really just about seeing what Baker Mayfield's going to do and tempering that expectation for the passing game moving forward. So, yeah, I'm going D-Hop. I think he's going to get fed in that offense for Tennessee.
That's exactly where I'm going. I trust Ryan Tannehill more than I trust Baker Mayfield. That's easy as that for me. Don't tell James I said that. Don't clip that. But, I could see him like stopping it where I said, I trust Ryan Tannehill, and he just like stops the clip.
Takes you out of context.
Look, you said you trusted this guy. No, I've definitely been a hater of the Tennessee Titans this offseason. But in this situation, I trust Ryan Tannehill more than Baker Mayfield. I am going DeAndre Hopkins over Chris Godwin. All right, this one's from me. And this is us playing fantasy football. We are fantasy football players who also love to talk about it and provide our own insights. But Mike Williams in that Chargers Dolphins game we talked quite a bit about already versus DJ Moore, also a game that we've talked quite a bit about already there in Chicago against the Packers. It's gonna be my flex spot. These are kind of just the last 2 guys that I've been looking at. PPR, full point. What do you think here between DJ Moore and Mike Williams?
I think with it being PPR full point, DJ Moore might get more targets, which could lead to more catches in this scenario. What worries me about DJ Moore is that he's going to have Jair Alexander on him for most of the game. Number 1 corner for the Packers, top 3 corner in the league. Going to be shadowing him for most of the time. He gave Justin Jefferson fits last year in the last game of the season, I want to say. So, I mean, that worries me. As far as Mike Williams goes, I'm going to be talking about this game all night, I feel like. It seems like every question we've gone through gets me back to the Chargers and Dolphins game, but I think he's going to be due for a big season this year. I think this might be the transition from Keenan Allen to Mike Williams as that primary option a little bit more. And I think with Jalen Ramsey being out, there's not a lot of proven defensive backs there, at least from the corners. For Miami. So I think he's going to reap the benefits there. I'm going Mike Williams here.
Okay. So, see, you started talking to me and DJ Moore because I was like, oh, he'll hit the screen passes. He'll get those easy targets, the short option targets. And then you slapped me with the Mike Williams at the end. So, yeah, I think that, I honestly think I can't go really wrong with this pick.
Right.
I don't think either one of them is going to throw up a huge goose egg for me. I'm just trying to think through this one and see, do I need some upside or should I go a little bit safer? I do think, Mike Williams is probably a safer play, especially seeing DJ Moore in this first time in this offense. But man, I just remember that screen pass he took to the house in the preseason game. Like
62 yards, baby.
Give me some of that on my starting lineup here. All right, before we go into a little bit more start sit. We got Tyler here, Miles Sanders or Kenneth Walker, PPR scoring format. I'm Walker on this one. I just think I like his usage more, and I don't know what to think about Miles Sanders in the Carolina Panthers yet. Like, he's got a rookie quarterback. I assume they're going to give him the ball a lot, but I'm pretty sure Atlanta knows that too. So I'm Kenneth Walker right now on this one.
No, I'm with you. And also the Seahawks are playing the Rams defense. Obviously, they have Aaron Donald there in the middle, but I'm not really worried about anyone else on that defense wreaking any havoc and stopping anybody in the run. I think Kenneth Walker is going to have a good opportunity for them to go up early and continue to pile it on from a fantasy perspective. So, I'm going Walker too here with that one for sure. I do have a question I want to run by you related to Cooper Kupp for my lineup. So I originally had Cooper Kupp and CeeDee Lamb as my top two receivers. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb moves into that receiver 1 position. So the next 2 spots I need filled in are my wide receiver 2 and my flex. So I'm looking at Christian Kirk, DJ Moore, and Hollywood Brown.
Out of those 3, I'm going Kirk and Moore. And I'll talk about Hollywood Brown in our start sit segment that's coming right up. And just a little teaser, he will not be in my start column.
Perfect. That's where I had
it. Did you know I had him in my sit column?
I did not. I guess I didn't look at it close enough.
I thought maybe you were just teeing me up, I'm like, all right.
On me.
It's a good way to segue into the start sit,
let's
segment.
Get over there. Over there.
I really am. I'm going to talk about this game a little bit here, the Washington versus the Arizona Cardinals, but I don't want to start Hollywood Brown right now if I don't have to. And you have 2 viable options to where you don't necessarily have to start Hollywood Brown.
For sure.
Tyler likes the Christian Kirk play. So we are going to get in our start sit segment here. These are kind of just they're borderline players. Do you put them in your lineup? Do you keep them out for the week? This is a segment that we're going to run through every week. Just give you one player, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. And we're going to tell you a guy that we want to start, and then we'll tell you a guy we want to sit in a little bit, kind of a rapid fire reasoning why we don't want to play him or we do want to play him. We'll kick it off with quarterbacks. Dan, I'll let you go first for a guy I kind of like tomorrow night too.
Man, I hate doing this whenever teams are playing Kansas City, but I just feel like this is too good of a matchup for the Detroit Lions. So I'm saying Jared Goff is a guy that you gotta start him. If you're looking at some of these other quarterbacks you might have taken, Kirk Cousins going against the Tampa Bay defense, obviously he's going to connect with Justin Jefferson, but we've seen games where he maybe puts up 170 in a touchdown and they still win. So those are all scenarios I want to avoid. Quarterbacks like that. Tennessee's got a stout defense too, for Derek Carr in his matchup. that is one that you could also look at. So I'm just thinking about guys maybe you took in later rounds or on like the back end of that session where you could put Jared Goff over some of those guys, or even pick them up on the waiver if you don't like your matchup. So yeah, Jared Goff against Kansas City. I think there's a good chance he puts up, floor for me there is like 20 to 23 points. So I just feel like he's going to put up some touchdowns and get some yards going.
I mean, highest scoring total on the week, right out of the gate. So I like Jared Goff tomorrow night. When we talk about DFS lineups, I'll kind of talk through him as well. I've got Daniel Jones against the Dallas Cowboys. I like Jones really to get off to a hot start in general for the Giants. And they're hosting this Dallas team who has a pretty tough defense. Daniel Jones at home. He's got new weapons. Darren Waller, Jalen Hyatt and company. Still got some old weapons too, and Isaiah Hodges there. And quite frankly, if I drafted Daniel Jones, I personally probably am drafting him as my only quarterback. So I'm willing to go ahead and throw him in there and give him the start against the Dallas Cowboys. I'll go ahead to running back, and my running back is Raheem Mostert against the Los Angeles Chargers. No Jeff Wilson. Devin A-Chain's been battling the injuries we talked about earlier in the podcast here.
Yep.
I mean, I don't think Raheem Mostert's going to sustain this like season-long greatness by any means, but we've seen it time and time again. When it's Mostert and he's getting all the opportunity there, he shows out and he puts up good numbers for you. And I'm not afraid of Raheem Mostert. The Chargers, a bottom 6 team in rushing yards per game last season. I think that they're going to feed Mostert the rock quite a bit there in Miami, and definitely willing to put him in my lineups this weekend.
I love that. So I'll go with my running back, and it's B. Robinson. I'm not talking Bijan, Brian Robinson Jr. for Washington, going against the Arizona Cardinals and their defense, who have just been trading and cutting people. They traded Isaiah Simmons for a bag of peanuts. So, I mean, I just don't see any scenario where the Cardinals aren't the punching bag this year in terms of running back chooses to start against the defense. So Brian Robinson Jr., there's a good chance Commanders milk the clock away and he puts up some good yardage. Good points.
Would you play Brian Robinson over Dalvin Cook?
That's a good question. So as a second RB and a super flex, I don't think that would be really hard for me. Dalvin Cook, I do like his upside. The fact that Breece Hall is going to be playing makes me limit his ceiling. Now, if there's no Breece Hall, then I'm Dalvin Cook all the way. But the fact that Breece Hall is going to be getting some playing time, getting some reps, likely going to be getting a lot of work between the 20s and in the passing game in those scenarios. So, I mean, I'm probably going Brian Robinson here. I think the matchup is just too juicy.
Yeah, it would be Brian Robinson easy for me. I'm not high on Dalvin Cook. I am high on Brian Robinson. I am high on this Washington team this weekend against exactly what you said, the punching bag of the NFL, the Arizona Cardinals. The Jets are playing the Bills, y'all. Like, we can talk about how we think the Jets are going to be good this year. That Bills defense is still pretty solid, and I don't necessarily want to trust either one of those running backs over there. So I would be Brian Robinson. Go ahead with get us kicked off with wide receiver, because I kind of like your wide receiver too. And you already talked about it once today.
Yeah, it's Christian Kirk for me going against Indianapolis. Another, in my opinion, punching bag for opposing offenses. I think these guys, they shed a lot of people in their secondary last year, the Colts did. The Jaguars are going to be, they're going to be pretty damn good on offense. Trevor Lawrence is going to be taking another step forward this year. Him and Christian Kirk, he got Christian Kirk up to wide receiver 6 last year in terms of his production. So, I'm a big fan of what he's going to do against this defense this week, and I'm riding with Christian Kirk as my start of the week for this week.
I like Christian Kirk. I like this Jaguars team to cover the 4.5. It's just 4.5.
It's nothing
against the Colts this week. I like the Jaguars there. What's up, Justin Herbert, coming in from LA, getting ready for the Miami Dolphins. Do I need to start your boy Mike Williams this week?
Thanks for joining the stream, Herbie.
Heck yeah, man. I'm going right back to the Washington Jahan Dotson against Arizona Cardinals. Throw him in your lineups this week. I know earlier I said, look, if it's Mostert versus Dotson, didn't tell you all that they're both in my starts this week, but in that situation it was non-PPR, so it was a little different. But definitely like Dotson this week. Terry McLaurin was back at practice today, so that's obviously going to lower Dotson's ceiling a little bit, and we got to lower our expectations for Dotson. But give us what other better matchup? Sam Howell, Eric Bieniemy, McLaurin, Dotson, Robinson, all these guys. This is the perfect scenario for this newfound offense to break out in a huge way against the punching bag of the NFL, as you said it earlier. This is a perfect scenario for this Washington team, I think. And I really believe Eric Bieniemy and company are going to try to showcase what Sam Howell has to really get those fans fired up and rolling. So I love Jahan Dotson this week. I think he's a high ceiling type of play. And yeah, you can definitely get out of here with a 0 because it is still the lowest scoring total on the slate at 38.5 38.5. But I like Dotson this week if you need a play there. I'll go ahead and finish up with tight end. Tyler Higbee. This one's easy for me. No Cooper Kupp. Higbee should feast quite a bit this weekend against the Seattle secondary that wasn't very good last year. So give me some Tyler Higbee.
Love it. Love it. And yeah, I already talked about Gerald Everett, but that's my start of the week from a tight end perspective. Obviously, if you're not starting one of those top guys, I really love his potential in that matchup, and that's where I'm going with it for sure.
All right. Herb says, good luck this year. Should I start Tony? Actually,
maybe.
Yeah.
What are your options?
Especially if Kelce is out, I would definitely bump Tony a little bit more. Tony and Moore are going to be the every down guys. That's in MVS, but Tony and Moore are going to be the every down guys. It looks like Rashee Rice and Justin Ross are actually going to be more special packages type players, at least in the beginning of the season. So I'm not against Tony, but it would definitely depend on the rest of your lineup and what your options are. Mike Williams going to go crazy this year. And Justin just giving a little good luck to the Chiefs, man. And we can talk shit all year long. I'm not worried about that. I do think that Justin Herbert is going to go off this year. I truly, I think that this Chargers offense under Kellen Moore could be just different than what it's been in the past. I think a lot of it's going to just depend on how much does the head coach just kind of stay out of the way and let Kellen Moore do his thing, right? Because
100%.
Who knows about him?
I was going to say, I think Brandon Staley's job depends on it. So
yeah, just get out of the way and let Kellen Moore kind of take this offense on. And then one more thing, Justin says, should I start Kelce? Just to recap, what I said earlier in the show was if he plays tomorrow and he's going to be limited and you don't get a lot of reports about him not playing a lot, then if he's limited, I'm still going to start him in my lineups. You draft him in the first round for a reason. It only takes 1 or 2 routes for him to score a touchdown, especially if they play him in the red zone, those kind of things. But just kind of monitor that tomorrow. And from there, it's really just going to be a gut feel on whether or not you feel good about starting Travis Kelce or not. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with Travis Kelce. Let's move to the sits. These are the guys that we are borderline, but we don't necessarily want to play them.
Yeah, I'll start with my quarterback here. And this is a guy I know some people were kind of high on him coming in this year and having a better a nice sophomore season, but he's going against the San Francisco 49ers. It's Kenny Pickett, their newest, highest paid defensive player of the year. Nick Bosa has a lot of potential to take advantage of that Steelers line. Dude, just 170 million. I mean, wow. Just crazy. 34 mil a year on average. Just an insane deal. He's going to be coming in fired up. That whole Niners defense is just full of studs. Fred Warner, obviously. Big piece there. Eric Armstead. I mean, you can just rattle off name after name with that defense.
Wouldn't it be nice to just be able to, have your favorite team just pay your favorite defensive player that just could really change the game on defense? I mean, I wouldn't know. My favorite team doesn't do that, but
we know nothing about it.
It might be nice.
It would be really nice to get that back. But yeah, Kenny Pickett's the guy I'm picking for the sit this week. I don't care how you feel about him coming into this game. There's no reason you play him against the Niners.
Yeah. Justin agrees with you. He wishes he could swap the Bosas. I actually kind of agree with that. I mean, obviously talent-wise, but even just
health-wise, you want to swap them.
Health-wise, personality-wise. So I just, Joey's something else. And the Niners is sick, and I agree. Don't start Kenny Pickett if you don't have to. I'm gonna go Geno Smith, a guy that will probably be in more lineups than Kenny Pickett just off the start. You said it earlier, not necessarily scared of this Rams defense. I also am not. But man, in these divisional matchups in the NFC West, the Rams Seahawks, the Rams Niners, Seahawks Niners, like these games always generally become just slugfests. And I could see that kind of happening. These offenses is not necessarily unleashing early. Rams dealing with some, injuries, so maybe they try to slow the game down a little bit. Obviously, Pete Carroll loves to run the ball, so I don't really love Geno Smith this week, and I'm probably going to go ahead and sit him most often. The next one I'm going to go with is Jamal Williams against the Tennessee Titans there for the New Orleans Saints. The volume should be there this week for Williams, obviously. No Alvin Kamara. Kendry Miller is injured off and on quite a bit. So I think Jamal will be the main guy. But for me, for New Orleans to move the ball and generate any offense against this Tennessee defense, I do think it's going to be mostly through the air with Derek Carr, with Michael Thomas, Chris Olave and company, Jawan Johnson. That's where I think the Saints will find success this weekend. I don't necessarily think it'll be on the running, with the run game. I don't think Jamal Williams is a very good running back. I think he's a goal line back, but he's going to have to be out there most of the game. And I just don't trust him this week. So if it's me, I'm going to go ahead and sit Jamal Williams.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. Tennessee's pretty stout in the run game. I mean, they got Jonathan Simmons right there in the middle, wreaking havoc.
Is that the cat we've drafted in that IDP league and then he got hurt?
Jeffrey Simmons, not Jonathan Simmons. It's Jeffrey Simmons, and yes, that is the guy.
It was him, right?
No. That was Harold Landry.
Oh, Landry.
That was
right.
Their edge rusher.
That was such a blow to our team, man.
That was detrimental.
Such a blow.
That's what that was. We spent a lot of capital on him.
We did. Oof.
But yeah, he's actually going to be back too. So that's a really good point. But yeah, I mean, I don't blame you there with that one. For me, it's Breece Hall. We kind of already talked about a little bit with, the limitations there against the Bills, a good defense in prime time. There's just all of those scenarios that really just lead me to want to stay away from him going into this week. And then I'll give you my wide receiver take, and it's just all of the Ravens wide receivers. There's no scenario that's going to lead to me putting Odell Beckham Jr., Zay Flowers, or Rashad Bateman in my lineups this week. just not going to happen. Now, Mark Andrews, that's a different story. I think he's going to be that guy, that constant for them in the passing game. But and they're the major problem for me is that they're playing Houston. So that has like blowout material written all over it where they're going to run the ball a ton on the back end of that game. Maybe they surprise me. Maybe they do something similar to what they did to Miami a couple years ago, opening the season. Lamar Jackson scored like 6 touchdowns or something like that. But I just don't see it being a situation where any of these Ravens receivers put up good enough numbers for me to put them in my lineup.
Yeah, I could see one of them, potentially hitting the big play. But which one? Like
it's a crapshoot.
Good luck, figuring out which one it's going to be. So I can get on board with that one. If I'm starting any of the 3, I would just say I'll start Zay Flowers over the other 2. If I had to start one of the 3, I do like Zay Flowers quite a bit. I think he looks good right now. But I could see them running the ball against this Houston. Houston was the worst, I think, run defense last year. And all 3 of these running backs could touch the ball 20 times potentially and just get out of there with a 30-10 victory.
Yeah, easily. Not to mention the carries Lamar Jackson's going to get.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't, I don't blame you there. I'm going with the aforementioned Hollywood Brown here against this Washington team. Josh Dobbs is the starting quarterback. He was signed last week, y'all. Like the guy was signed, and Colt McCoy's cut, and Clayton Tune is a now backup, and Josh Dobbs is the quarterback. Like, no thanks. The total is 38.5. I think Arizona expected points is like 13.5, 14.5, somewhere in there, if my math is right. So I don't love that, and don't love Hollywood Brown this week. Like, this just feels so bad.
13.5. Oh my God. That is just insane.
I'm pretty sure that's where
they haven't had a point total that low for a team since 1920.
Oh
I'm pulling that just out of a hat, but
I know, but it's very, very low, and it's not something you want to touch this week. So I don't want to play any of my Cardinals, but Hollywood is like the guy, and so he might be somebody you're looking at starting. For me, I'm setting Hollywood, and then my tight end I'm sitting is Greg Dulcich against the Las Vegas Raiders. I think this is kind of a trap for you because Jerry Jeudy might not play, so then everybody's going to be looking to find like what Bronco should I play. Jerry Judy's not playing. It could be Greg Dulcich. I just want to avoid this situation right now. If I've got Cortland Sutton, I'm going to go ahead and play him, but I kind of just want to avoid this Denver situation. I want to see something out of this Broncos offense because they were bad. Russ was bad last year, and not to say he can't be good still, and I think Sean Payton's a good coach, and I do think they have a lot of weapons here, but I want to stay away from Greg Dulcich this weekend against the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yep. And then my tight end I'm staying away from is Pat Freiermuth. Now, I'm really high on him season long. I think he has a lot of potential this year, even with Darnell Washington in there for Pittsburgh. But him and Pickett, they showed they have a really good relationship in terms of their on-the-field chemistry. And so long-term, definitely a guy that you want to keep on your team. But this week against the Niners, man, I just see them destroying Pittsburgh, and I want no part of it.
Well, we have a couple more segments here to go. A new one, really. This next one's going to be kind of new. It'll be a little bit fun. I actually am kind of pumped for this. If you're in the chat with us, thank you so much for hanging out. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And no, I don't. I really don't think Josh Dobbs does decent this week.
Is Jimmy G playing?
I also don't like any of your other quarterbacks, but I guess you just go Russ versus Jimmy G and hope that game has a little bit of shootout. But no, I don't like Josh Dobbs this week. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button, share us with your friends. If you're listening on the audio, version. Thank you so much for being there. Please rate our podcast and feel free to come over to the YouTube channel on Wednesday nights at 8:15. Dan, high risk, high reward. Talk us through what we're doing here with this segment.
Yeah, my man, this is going to be one player each week that we highlight that has a questionable scenario. Maybe the floor is super low on this player, but just the scenario going into this specific game gives them a very high ceiling. So, I mean, this could be because of an injury, which I think mine is heavily related to. This could be the matchup for that given week. Just all of the different factors that kind of weigh on this particular player put them in a scenario where you could end up getting 2-3 points from this player, or you could end up getting a 20 burger from them. So I'll start with my guy and just kind of talk you through my thought process here. It's for tomorrow night's game. Travis Kelce. I don't see a scenario that sees him line up and play any meaningful snaps at all. I'm going with Sky Moore here. Kadarius Toney's nursing that injury as well. So that's a potential for him to maybe even be on the snap count. A lot of talk about him taking a leap forward this year. They're going against the Detroit defense, which I am not scared of. Highest total on the week. There's all these scenarios here that just have Sky Moore kind of poised for a big breakout type of game. And if he ends up being the number one guy that Mahomes is looking at, then especially this week, then you're going to be feeling pretty good about it. So I'm all in for Sky Moore as my high risk, high reward player of the week. And I know we talked about him a little bit earlier too, but
I love it. No, I mean, I DFS wise, I'll have some Sky Moore for sure tomorrow night. I think that depending on what happens with Kelce, I honestly, I don't hate putting a guy like Sky Moore into an MVP spot, especially on DraftKings. You know, you got the money savings there because he's going to be cheaper, so you have a cheaper captain. On FanDuel, it doesn't matter for the money, but nobody else is like, I could probably get him at like 1 or 2%, and you love that high ceiling that I think Sky Moore brings to the table. My high risk, high reward player of the week is going to be Cam Akers against the Seattle Seahawks. No Cooper Kupp. There's no one behind Cam Akers to take any touches away. Like, none of these guys are really getting great camp reports. Seattle, a bad run defense. Opponents ran the ball on 47% of their offensive plays last year against the Seattle defense. That was the fourth highest run percentage in the league. I think Cam Akers sees 25 touches, potentially, you know, he could maybe get over the 30 mark. And really from that, it's just going to be all about what he does with them. Is he the Cam Akers of old, or is he the Cam Akers of old? Last year old? That's kind of the question for this week. I do think he's going to have massive, massive opportunity. I just don't know what he can do with it yet, because we used to see he was great. And then last year, not so much. And then at the end of last year, he really got into it again. So that's kind of why I think he's high risk, high reward, because he's going to have that volume for sure this week.
Yeah, and he's such an enigma to me, especially with last week. Mike Williams.
Justin says Mike Williams.
Yeah. High risk, high reward.
That's like every week, though, with Mike Williams, right?
I feel like that's season long.
Yeah.
High risk, high reward for Mike Williams. You just never know.
That's where I think I'm looking, you know, with some of these start-sit questions. Like, some of it is, what else do you have? Do you have a bunch of guys you feel really safe with?
Right.
That, you know, you just kind of like, all right, this guy's going to get me double digit. This guy's going to give me double digit. Do I need another 12-pointer, or do I want a guy that can give me 30?
Right.
And we know Mike Williams can definitely go up and give you 30. Thanks for being in the chat. Keep those chats coming tonight. Yeah, I like the high risk, high reward plays. Those I think those will be fun, and we'll have to kind of track them and see how we do the like next week. We'll have to talk about how we did this week.
Well, that was one of my favorite parts about coming into the following week, is just kind of seeing where everybody placed, wide receiver 2 or whatever the case was. There were a couple weeks where you and I just like cleaned up, and then a couple weeks where we got our clock clean. So
fantasy football.
That's fantasy football for you. Absolutely. So we'll move it into our streams of the week. It's early in the season. Obviously, we haven't even kicked off week 1 yet. So this is going to become more and more important as we kind of move through the season, as we navigate buys and different matchups and injuries. We'll have a little more insight, especially when it comes to the first position that we're going to touch on, which is quarterback. So tell us about who your stream of the week is for QB this week, Trevor.
Yeah, this week, going right back to the well. If you haven't heard me say it yet today, I love this Washington offense against this Arizona defense. Right? Talked about it when I talked about Dotson, and I really think that this is an opportunity for Sam Howell to have a mini coming out party here against this terrible Arizona Cardinals defense team, really. And I think that Arizona is going to be a team that we're going to target a lot, whether it's streaming quarterbacks, whether it's streaming defenses, anything we can. We're going to target this team. Sam Howell in the preseason, 28 for 37. He was very efficient, 265 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Really liked what I saw out of him. Sounds like Terry McLaurin's going to have a chance to play this weekend. So that's going to, boost Sam Howell even more. Look, don't go out and throw this guy in against, some of your top 12 type of quarterbacks. But if you're in a deeper league, or maybe you didn't draft a quarterback and you're just straight up streaming all season long, I think Sam Howell's a good starting point this weekend.
No, I love that. I think there's definitely a chance for him to build some confidence for the long haul here against that defense too, and really acclimate himself to the NFL. Because, unfortunately he had that injury last year and didn't get to play. So this is a good opportunity for him for sure. I'm leaning towards a guy that I kind of talked about earlier because of his matchup against Tennessee. But I think if you're looking at streaming quarterbacks, you really are kind of limited on your options anyway. And I think the weapons that Derek Carr possesses in New Orleans is better than the majority of the situations that some of these other streaming type quarterbacks are going to find themselves in. And I think that's going to help bring a little bit more positivity to him. Now, Derek Carr is not going to be a guy that rocks a stat sheet typically, but he's safe for, maybe about a 20-point outing. So if you're in a scenario where you just don't like your matchup, Derek Carr is available in most of the leagues that I'm a part of, and they're anywhere from 10 to 14 people in those leagues. So definitely worth picking him up as an option for a stream this week.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, right? Jamal Williams, I didn't like him because I think they're going to move the ball through the air.
Yeah.
Tennessee's pass defense was not very good last year, and it seems like Derek Carr and Michael Thomas are kind of hitting it off a little bit. Derek Carr looked all right in the preseason, so could be a good starting point here. Defensively, I'm going to go with this Jacksonville defense over the Indianapolis Colts. Rookie quarterback. I mean, what defense are you running? Let me look before you have to say anything out loud. Okay. Oh God, of course. I love your defense.
Yeah, I was like, that's why I started laughing. I was like, of course we did.
But any defense that you're running against rookie quarterback in this first week, like Houston, Carolina, Indianapolis, all these teams are going to be running out their rookie quarterbacks. I love playing the defenses against them. It's their first game out. The NFL is a different game than college. And not to say these quarterbacks are not going to be successful. Everybody knows my love for Anthony Richardson. But for week 1, with no running back, really, not really sure who your running back's going to be anyways. I could see Anthony Richardson making a few mistakes here and there, and this Jacksonville team taking the ball away quite a bit. So I like the Jags.
No, absolutely. And then I'm taking the other punching bag. We've just been crushing these guys. I'm going with Washington against the Arizona Cardinals. The big thing for me is that they just brought back Payne, their defensive tackle. He got paid. They get Chase Young back from that ACL tear. They still have a solid group of linebackers, a solid secondary. Their safeties are some of the most underrated in the league. I just don't see a scenario where they don't attack Josh Dobbs in the backfield, especially with that weak offensive line that Arizona has. They brought in Paris Johnson, which was a big add in the draft for Arizona, but they also shipped out a lineman just last week, and they have another one that retired in Rodney Hudson at center. So there's a lot of turnover on that offensive line. I think there's going to be a little bit of a turnstile situation going where they're attacking Dobbs quite a bit, causing pressure. And if they're not getting sacks, there's a good chance they're forcing turnovers. So not many points are going to be scored in that either. So you don't have to worry about that. I mean, I think a shutout is in play.
Yeah.
With this particular
100%.
matchup. So
100%. That's our streaming quarterback and defense of the week. One more segment here. So kind of your last chance if you're in the chat to get your last minute start sit questions in. But Dan, last year we brought our listeners a little bit of a DFS sprinkle each and every week. This year we're going to be doing the same thing, but we're going to give out our Thursday night lineups, right? You'll give out your DraftKings lineup. I'll give out a FanDuel lineup because they play a little bit different. And then, of course, if you love DFS, please check out my show on Friday nights at 8:15. The Rumbles are Red. I will be talking through the Sunday main slate every week over there, or right here on the Bite Size Sports, but over on my show. And we'll talk through that on FanDuel. But Dan, DraftKings single game showdown, whatever they want to call it over there. Let's talk through your lineup.
Yeah, that Thursday night single game showdown. Instead of an MVP on FanDuel, they call it a captain. So you get the 1.5 times on their score. I'm going with Patrick Mahomes as my captain at 12.2K. I just feel like, it doesn't matter who's going to be lining up out there. Mahomes is going to get his, especially when you're talking about the Lions defense. Big fan of him for that game on Thursday night. Jared Goff, had to plug him in there as well. I think there's a lot of good offensive skill players that can pop off here, but I feel like I had to include both of these quarterbacks because of the value that I was getting on the back end for some of these other skill players I think could come in and do some damage. So that puts me at 14.1 with Goff. Amon-Ra St. Brown, had to plug him in there. I think he's going to be just a force as long as he's healthy. We've seen him miss a couple games here and there, but nothing super long term. And Jared Goff loves to throw the ball to him. He's going to get a lot of targets, putting him in at 10.2. Following that up with Sam Laporta, who I talked about earlier, he's at 5K. 5K total. Sky Moore, who I talked about, got to have him in the lineup. I think his value here is immense, especially when you're looking at Kadarius Toney, who is about $7,000 in this particular budget. You can get Sky Moore for about $2,500 less. So at 4.8, you put Sky Moore in the lineup. And then I'm rounding it out with Noah Gray at 2.4. With the chance that Kelce does suit up, I still think Noah Gray is going to end up getting more play in this offense, more opportunities. That leaves me with about $1,000 left of my budget. And I feel like I put together the best lineup out of anybody.
Yeah. I love the Gray play. You're going to see that on mine too. I think that I definitely played a little different where I try to avoid the quarterbacks and the captain, the MVP spots, just because it's so popular that I want to be able to take advantage of that time that the quarterback's not the guy, right? So the way I went about it was I built a lineup here that I'll actually show you all. I built the lineup that I think that has a chance to be really, really bad, but also a chance to be pretty decent.
High
and
risk,
that's
high
kind of the
reward.
way. It's kind of that's kind of the way I play. I always play these on FanDuel. They're 100-player leagues. You literally have it's a 3 entries and top 12, and it's $5, and the payout's $125 up top. And I've taken it down many times over the course of the last couple of seasons. But I'm going to go Amon-Ra St. Brown in my MVP spot here. FanDuel is different than DraftKings. If you haven't played on either one of them before, DraftKings, you know, although you get 1.5 points per captain spot. You also have to pay 1.5 the salary, so you are spending a little bit extra. FanDuel does not make you spend anything extra, so it is heavy quarterback MVP because you don't really have any salary savings there. It's all the same. It's just pure points, but you still get the 1.5 point differential. I'm going Jared Goff and Jahmyr Gibbs on Detroit side. I kind of played this with no Kelce, and if no Kelce's in the lineup, maybe the Chiefs rely on the run game a little bit more. We did see Detroit get destroyed by the run game quite a bit last year. So I go with the same Noah Gray, 5,500 on FanDuel, and then put in Isaiah Pacheco here at 11.5, leaving me 3,000 on the table. But, man, it's so hard on FanDuel to get both of these quarterbacks in the lineup. You can't get – essentially you can't get ASB, Mahomes, and Jared Goff. If you do that, there's literally nobody else left. Even if you take Noah Gray at 5,500, you're still way down there. You can't get Sky Moore. He's too expensive. That would have been the play. So that's kind of my thought is, like, if Kelce's out, maybe I omit Patrick Mahomes and they just lean into that run game the first week. So that's where I'm going for my Thursday night showdown lineup for week 1, Chiefs versus the Detroit Lions. Dan, what happens tomorrow night?
Man, I think as far as the game goes, it's going to be a shootout. There's going to be a lot of points scored. I like the
You got to paint the picture. You're sitting up in the crowd.
Yep, I'm up in 308 with my boys.
The Chiefs drop the banner.
Oh, man, I feel goosebumps come through because the banner, we didn't get to see that the first time around. You feel the fire from the players coming out of the tunnel.
Literally, you feel the fire.
The heat, literally, you feel the heat. And then, Andy Reid does what he does best and defers, and the Lions get the ball first. And that's what happens to start it. After that, it's just going to be a slugfest, I think, where, if the Chiefs win, it's because Mahomes did everything that Mahomes does. And I think if the Chiefs lose, then there was a key turnover somewhere and the Lions were put in a position where they could run some clock.
Well, our boy John says Chiefs by 11. All right. So, and Herbert says Jack Campbell is going to be laying some wood. So we'll see how this goes here. The Chiefs defense is a little suspect. I would agree, especially without Chris Jones in the middle. But I've said it all week long. I'll say it one more time. I think the Lions put up 31 points on the Chiefs tomorrow night. I really don't know that the Chiefs are going to stop this team. But I do know that the Lions have no shot of stopping Patrick Mahomes. And I wouldn't be surprised if Mahomes put up 40, 42, 45 points. With or without Kelce. Obviously, with Kelce makes me feel a lot better about that. But I'm going Chiefs by double digits and way over the 52.5 tomorrow night.
Nice.
Perfect night. It's going to be nice weather. I hope that you have a blast, my friend, and soak it all in. It's going to be awesome for you. I will be sitting on my back patio enjoying some libations and some cheese dip and just really taking it in with my boys.
Let's go.
My boys, my little boys, different type of boys than what you'll be taking it in with at the game. But no, man, I just want to say, seriously, enjoy it. It's going to be awesome.
Absolutely.
And, hey, world champions, baby.
World champs. Come on.
Champions.
What you guys know about it?
Let's
go. About it? Let's go. Absolutely. No, I hope you enjoy it with your boys too, because just the fact that they're their age and they get to experience this ball club doing what they're doing, it's something that you and I can relate to. Nothing that we had the pleasure of doing when we were kids.
Not even a little bit.
So I just love that you get to experience that with your boys. So that's pretty awesome. I hope you enjoy the game as well. Get cuddled up around the TV with some family. get some barbecue going or whatever the food of
That's
choice
right.
is. Obviously, we're going to have some chips and dip, some Rotel going over there. So it's going to be awesome, man. I'm so excited. Not just for the Chiefs game, but to get this freaking season off the ground and up
That's
and
right.
running. We're going to kill it this year in ADP. I hope you guys come along with us for the ride and really just kind of tap into everything and interact with us. Because at the end of the day, best part about fantasy football and what we're doing here at this platform is creating a community. All of that's done because of our partner in Bite Size Sports. So make sure you're following them on Twitter and joining the Discords and really getting involved with that, because the family within that community extends beyond football too. So it's rare that I find someone that's only interested in one sport.
Yep.
And there's really so many great creative people affiliated with Bite Size, and luckily you and I get to be a part of that. So really pumped to get things going. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well at Dan_TF40. Trevor, you got anything for the people before we get this thing kicked off?
Yeah, a couple things real fast. Bite Size Sports has dropped their first Bite Size NFL pods. So we've got Bite Size Steelers, Bite Size Vikes, Bite Size Titans, I think, is about to go up. So make sure you go and follow that over on our YouTube channel at Bite Size Sports. And there's also an audio feed, Bite Size NFL. Just check that out. There are, some of our guys talking about their favorite teams, man. What can go wrong there? Just kind of hearing from our guys and gals just about who they love in the NFL. I promise you, Tyler, they will never be Cowboys fans like you. Don't know how that happened. Hey, follow me on Trevor S_FF. Join the Discord, y'all. Join the Discord. Seriously. We're active in the Discord. We're talking football all the time, talking fantasy football all the time. And if you want to branch out, like Dan said, we got basketball, baseball, college football stuff going on as well in the Discord. So jump in the Discord, have a lot of fun, be a part of the community, follow us everywhere you can. And truly, I hope that you enjoy your first week. Good luck to all of you. And make sure you take your Thursday night players out of your flex.
Yep. Heck yeah. We'll see you guys.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting